Good morning, Lansing Journal community. I'm Josh Bootsma, managing editor of the Lansing Journal, and today I am standing on the banks of the Little Calumet River. And 170 or 180 years ago, at this very location, this was a station on the Underground Railroad. Freedom seekers came through and perhaps stood on the very ground that I'm standing on now, fleeing slavery in the South on their way up here to Chicago, then to Detroit, then ultimately to Canada to seek their freedom. This is the site of the Tun Farm, owned and operated by Dutch immigrants, Jan and Achie Tun, and they were helpers, they were advocates, they hid people, they fed people here on this very land that I'm standing on right now. It's an honor for me to be standing here. And the reason I'm here today specifically is because the Dutch ambassador, the ambassador from the Kingdom of the Netherlands to the United States, is coming here today. She is going to be part of a dedication of a new sign that will be at the Tun site. This is a nationally recognized historical place. She's coming here today, and we thank the Little Calumet River Underground Railroad Project for inviting the Lansing Journal to this. They have done a great work in raising awareness of the Southland region's deep history with regard to the Underground Railroad, and specifically this site they've drawn a lot of attention to, and there's some plaques and some other recognitions. This site is more of a destination than it ever has been. So thanks to them for raising awareness for the Underground Railroad and for the invitation to the event today. We hope that you enjoy it. That's going to be what today's video is, and thank you.
In 1857, three freedom seekers had been living in Chicago, and they headed for Detroit, and they came down the historic road from Chicago going to Detroit. And as they came down, they needed some help when they got here. Remember, Chicago was a little town. They came 15 miles short, and they got into what we know as Roseland on Michigan Avenue. That was the historic road. And they came down and they disappeared. Now, living on Michigan Avenue was a family, Cornelius and March A. Kuiper. And they had a little store and a farm right on what we know as Michigan Avenue. And the slave catchers, some slave catchers were after them. So these two slave catchers show up, and because Cornelius Kuiper was kind of an unofficial, like a constable for the Dutch community, by law, the federal law said he had to help any people looking for fugitives. So Cornelius Kuiper took them all around the area we know as Roseland. Nothing about these three fugitives. And he came down the road and he came over here, and they came right here to the Tun farm, and they talked with Jan Tun, and they said, "We're looking for these three fugitives. Where are they?" And the Tuns didn't know. And so Kuiper went over, and what we know as the Indiana Avenue Bridge, Kuiper took those two slave catchers, and they rode up by horse all the way to what we know as Hammond, Indiana. No fugitives. These guys are really disappointed. You need to understand, we're talking about property. In those days, a fugitive was worth about $800, a fugitive slave. That's the equivalent of about $20,000. So here, these two slave catchers were looking for $60,000 worth of property, and they couldn't find it. And so Kuiper rode with them back up halfway to Chicago. They went back to Chicago empty-handed. Cornelius Kuiper comes back to his house. And can you imagine what he did? He walked over to the barn and invited three men in for dinner. Now, we have loads of stories like that. And one of the things that's so exciting is to know that we have these stories right here in our backyard. And so we know that right here and right at the bridge, literally hundreds of people were right here who were on their way to freedom. And of course, the great irony is, particularly in the 1850s, the only way to be free was to leave the land of the free. And so people of African descent were under danger at all times. And it is remarkable that right here, 500 to 800 freedom seekers found their way. Some of them stopped here and got some help. Some of them stopped with the Kuipers. But this remarkable group of people over in the 1830s, the 1840s, and the 1850s made their way to Detroit and freedom in Chicago.
Jan and Achia were my great-great-grandparents. It's a sense of pride because here were Jan and Achia. They immigrated in 1849, and so within the next few years they became involved in helping freedom seekers travel through this area, and it kind of got lost to history until Larry McClellan and some of the other folks here, Tom Shepard, learned of the story and started talking the story, and we learned about it. And I always like to say that this is hallowed ground, and hallowed not because of what Jan and Achia did, but hallowed because of what the freedom seekers did. To be able to risk their lives for something that is a foundational element of being a human being, that freedom, is just incredible.
I think first and foremost, as an African American, this has tremendous import to me personally and historically, and so I'm really interested in learning as much as I can about it. The other thing is, this is a hidden treasure, and I stumbled across it on a tour, and I've been very, very interested in it ever since, and recently joined the board of the Little Calumet Underground Railroad to see how I might be of value and service to the work that they're doing to really provide, I think, greater outreach education and to really get the story out publicly.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. This is just such an honor. We have been coming out here since the age of 10. And when it was just, we had a boat and we would just run up and down the hill and up and down the road, and we had no idea the beautiful historical significance of this place. My dad purchased this from the Greenwells in 2005, so almost 20 years ago. But we had been coming out here years before. We always felt a sense of peace and home without even knowing the history of it. The stories of courage and resilience deserves to be heard, and thanks to your interest, they continue to be. Let's carry these lessons forward and continue to advocate for equality and justice.
We gather together to ask the Lord's blessings. He chastens and hastens His will to make known. The wicked oppressing now cease from distressing. Sing praises to His name. He forgets not His own. Wilt henen du trainen voor God den Heere, en boven al loven van hert en zier, en maken groot zijn levens naar der Ehre, die darner onzen wee not slaat ter neer.
And one side is English and one side is Dutch.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Birgitta Tazelaar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrington. I must say, this was the best pronunciation of my name I've heard in 7 months. Fantastic. It's a real privilege to be here at what my ancestors indeed called the Lage Prairie or the Hoge Prairie, to learn about the freedom seekers, the Underground Railroad, and their journey on the road from Chicago to Detroit and on to Canada, to freedom. And listening to the stories of Dutch families that defied the Fugitive Slave Act to help them on their way makes it more special. I'm honored to have unveiled this interpretive panel together with Mr. Harrington that tells the stories of Dutch settlers and their work on the Underground Railroad. And I look forward to seeing it permanently installed. After this event, I will be heading to DuSable Black History Museum for the opening of an exhibition called Slavery: 10 True Stories of Dutch Colonial Slavery. And this is done in part with the Rijksmuseum of Amsterdam. The exhibition is part of the Netherlands' commitment to acknowledging our past. In December 22, Prime Minister Rutte, our current Prime Minister, he formally apologized for the nation's ugly, painful, and downright shameful role in slavery. Also, King Willem Alexander reiterated that apology a few months later and recognized that the legacy of slavery remains with us today. The King also announced that he had commissioned an independent study to shed more light on the role that the royal house played in our colonial past and history of slavery. Being here at Chicago's finest marina, once the farm of Dutch settlers Jan en Aagje Tom, is an encouraging reminder that even amidst that painful history, there are examples of inspiring moral conviction, the resilience of human spirit, and the humanity shared by the people of our two nations. I'm talking about the courageous freedom seekers who escaped the bonds of slavery, heading north and encountering Dutch immigrant families living on the Little Calumet River. The Tans and the Kuipers recognized the freedom seekers first and foremost as people who needed help. They knew that providing a place to stay or ride across the river, the bridge, was the right thing to do, despite the risk. They were breaking the law, as Professor Koens also mentioned, but they held the higher moral high ground to do so. And I'm proud of the Tans and the Kuipers. I'm proud that their actions paved the way for the Netherlands to be involved in the Little Calumet River Underground Railroad project today. It's incredible to see a diverse group of individuals and organizations, churches, schools, community groups that came together to rediscover this inspiring story and share it with the world. In particular, I would like to thank the Gaines family for hosting us and stewarding this land, as well as Larry McClellan, Tom Shepard and Rodney Carrington, and everyone else that is involved in the Little Calumet River Underground Railroad project. Standing here, it's clear that the story of the freedom seekers, the Dutch settlers on the Little Calumet and the Underground Railroad has many forms. First and foremost, it's a big story, a story of bravery and danger, a drama that touches many of the overarching themes of American history, themes like slavery, immigration, and civil disobedience. At the same time, it's a small story, a deeply normal story, a story of regular people helping other people, purely because it was the right thing to do so. And finally, it's a story about our shared values, values that bind the Netherlands and the United States today, our cultural heritage, our commitment to human rights, and above all, our deep dedication to freedom. Thank you very much.
Please take a look at the grounds, walk around, take in the area, breathe it in, understand the history that has been established here.
They ready?
The barn started right about where we're standing. The barn started, and just on the other side of the power pole, that's where the actual farm was.
I did. One day a year.
Yeah, and it was right on right here on the river.
hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, a special thanks to the Little Calumet River Underground Railroad Project for all the work that they do and for inviting us to this event. And I want to personally extend to you an invitation to come to this land, come to the Ton Farm site, and stand on the very land where freedom seekers came and were housed, and maybe wander around a little bit and try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's always looking over their shoulder, seeing if someone's chasing after them, who don't know where their next meal is coming from, who know that there's a bridge down there that they're supposed to cross, but they've never seen it before and were just told that there's a bridge down there, that kind of thing. And also put yourself in the shoes of the settlers who knew it was illegal to house freedom seekers and who did so anyway for no other reason that they knew it was the right thing to do. It's moving for me to be here on this ground today, and I hope you consider coming out. Thank you for watching today's video. We'll see you next week.